Hi, it's Tarrant.
And Stella from Meeple University. Today we are reviewing Shapers of Gaia from WizKids, plays 2 to 3 players. Very specific.
Yes.
So
Indeed.
this is kind of, I wouldn't say spiritual successor, but almost like it from the previous game by the same designers duo, Seastead. Now,
Yes.
Seastead only for 2 players, and it is on our top 10. I don't think I've actually produced the top 10 of 2-player game, but this was my top 10 2-player game when I did the video with Rado on Rado's channel.
And this was my top game of 2020.
There you go. Number 1. There you go. And top
Indeed.
10
This was
within top 10.
It was a really strong game, that
Yes.
one.
So we're going to talk about how this plays, how does that roughly compare with Seastead, and we're going to tell you, how overview and how it goes.
Yes.
Let's do this.
Let's do it. So this game, it has a lot of similarities with Seastead in terms of the way it in the way it plays. And if you are familiar with Seastead, you'll see that really quickly. Each turn, you have 2 possible actions. One of them involves spending a chunk of resources to build something on the board. Seastead had that, this has that one. So in this case, you will spend 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 of a resource. You'll move to a space on the board, and then you'll spend 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 of the resource matching that space. So let's say here, I would spend 1, and I would take an animal from that row and place it onto that space. That will then trigger a series of bonuses that will hopefully get you more resources. Again, Seastead did a very similar thing. So here you would take a scavenger card from this display. You would put it into the leaves row of your tableau.
Because you spend leaf resource.
Spend leaves. And then you would trigger all the cards in that row, wingspan style essentially. And this would give you an extra shard.
But in any order you like.
In any order. As the game goes on, you'll build up your tableau a little bit bigger and give you more cards. You also, for each animal you place, you unlock it might be an immediate ability, it might be a permanent ability. In some cases, it's a permanent ability that will get stronger when you do a second animal. And all of these player boards are unique. They all have various different powers. So that's the first thing you can do on your turn. The other option is you can place these biome tiles on the board. And you have 3 in your hand. You can place up to 3. You place them near this pawn here called the caretaker. You would do this, and then you get a mechanism which is very similar to the dive mechanism. Sorry, let's put that out. Very similar to the dive mechanism from Seastead. So there's 2 abilities on this tile. You choose one, and your opponents choose the opponents can do the other. And as you build up around the board, you'll move this guy, as I say, you can place between 1 and 3. And when you start placing in these outer edges, you get these DNA tokens, which can contribute to final scoring. And then you redraw from the biome deck. That's sort of the core of the game. How you score. So all of the animals have points underneath them, increasing number of points as you go along. So you'll score whatever you uncover.
Whatever you spend resources, so 1 is 1, 2 and 2 and so on.
Yep. Resources left over at the end of the game, those are worth points, as you can see on here. As you get these cards, these have DNA on them, and if you were to match up DNA with a card, then you will score the square of the number of DNAs matching in each row. So if I've got 1 DNA, it's 1 point, 2 DNA is 4, 3 would be 9 for those DNAs in the row. So if you can place the biomes at the right time and get them matching these cards, you'll get some points for that. The animal placement out on the main board, each animal has a behavior type, and you can score points if you place strategically there. So here, for example, predators on this side of the card will score only if they're in the middle ring. Herbivores, if you place them near other scavengers, whether they're yours or another player's, you'll get points for that. So there's a map placement element. And then there's a vault. This you can get some points for putting animals in here instead of out on the board. And that's sort of the bulk of where the points come from. Certain actions you'll take during the game. There's 3 basic types of resources and there's 2 advanced resources. These, you don't actually have to have them to spend them. You can choose not to spend them and you'll gain toxicity. And there are ways of getting rid of toxicity. Otherwise, they will start to cover up the points on your player board. So you can weather a small amount of toxicity if it gives you the resources you need. And that's kind of the core of the game.
The theme is very simple. This is basically a giant biome. We are caretakers and we are trying to restore the biomes and introduce the animals back into the wild inside the biomes.
Yes.
That's it. I did say it's 2 to 3 players rather than Seastead. It's only 2 players, so quite specific.
Yes.
And this, as you say, this is asymmetric. So we've got the dock looking from Back to the Future, I would say. So the power is slightly asymmetric when you unlock the animal.
The powers are actually very asymmetrical. All of these abilities are quite different.
And this one, I mean, it's the similar ones, but different resources, for example. There's this, a variety, although you can play up to 3 players only. The different players, different player boards has got different powers, and they comes in different complexity. Now, if you want to play this, I would highly suggest the designer sent me the sheets. They're helpful for the explanation of the powers. So this is very handy, very helpful. So you can download this via BGG under the files area. So recommended that for you to do to give you more explanations on the powers. What do you think, Tarrant?
Overall, this was a very tricky game to play. There were a lot of parts. There were a lot of rules. And there are a lot of terminologies that it's one of those themes that for me it's not obvious what's what. Mm-hmm. So it made it quite difficult to play. I found it a bit fiddly to play, and I found that was kind of my initial thought. I felt it was a bit more solitary than Seastead. Seastead was much more of a you can see exactly what the opponents were doing, because there were fewer rules involved and there were fewer asymmetries involved.
So you can immediately tell, all right, that your opponent needs these particular resources to do this, and you can block them out easily.
Yeah, and that was a huge part of that game. I didn't feel that was the case so much here, because you had these these resources. If you wanted them, you could just gain toxicity instead of having them.
So is it more forgiving than Seastead with a few more rules?
Felt a bit more forgiving. Depends on how the tiles come out on the board. Tiles got filled up relatively quickly. I don't know. The whole game had a lot of rules, a lot of investment in trying to work out how to play, and it didn't have the elegance of Seastead. It was a bit clunky for me.
I'm sorry.
It had this asymmetry. I would rather a symmetrical game that was really well balanced and had really interesting decisions than one where the intrigue comes from high asymmetry.
Mm-hmm. Well, mind you, we had quite a high standard coming from Seastead because we really love Seastead. And this is, although it has got Seastead feels, maybe if you like more asymmetry, then this might be it more. Some of the mechanics was introduced, like in Seastead, instead of animals, you bring out structures or boats.
Yeah, 3 different types of structures.
Yeah. And, in your turn, you can either build, like bring the structures out, in this case, bring the animals out, or gaining resources, which then is shared with your opponent. So you're kind of like, I want to get resources. You probably don't want to do that, but then in this one, in this game, it has more reward to build structures, to gain resources. Sorry, not to build structures, to gain resources to bring out the tiles. So each time you bring out tiles, you can bring up to 3 tiles. Yep. And you gain these DNA tiles, which obviously scores you points. So that's more incentive to do that.
Yeah, that's the big difference. It was always, you always wanted to avoid playing the dive card in Seastead. Here, sometimes you want to find the strategic times to take the DNA tiles because they do contribute to the final scores.
I link the video of Seastead in the video description, so we've got some playthrough video there. And yeah, so this is very similar. The asymmetric is just additional layer, whether you like it or not. In this case, you don't really think that it is bringing anything to the game, but it is like there are a few things that you can go for in this one, while in Seastead it's more like, okay, it's more mainstream rather than, okay, you can do this, this, this. So less choices, less rules, while in this one there are more varieties of how you can gain points. Like the animal placement, there's slightly randomness in the scoring of that. This animal you don't have to bring out from bottom to top, by the way. I think in Seastead you have to bring it from left to right.
From left to right, but you can always pick
any animals.
You can always pick any cost.
Oh, sorry, any animals.
So it can be a cost of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6, depending on where it was around the hex.
Yeah. So there are more ways to score, I feel like, in this one rather than Seastead. But yeah, but in Seastead it's got less, but then it's somewhat more elegant. Is that?
It's certainly more elegant.
Yeah.
The playability does have some issues as well. These big chunky pieces, they look really nice on the player board, but once you bring everything out here, things are really cramped. Icons are very small. That's a little bit of a problem as well, okay. Especially on first few plays, especially on introducing this game to people.
Yeah, I get it. But at least this one plays 3 players, not just 2 players.
True. So
that's Shapers of Gaia. I do highly recommend, please check out Seastead. Strictly 2-player game. We would recommend that one before this one. If you really like Seastead, maybe then you can try this one. Or you want to try this one anyway, then you can see the comparison with Seastead. Let us know if you have played it, even what do you think of it. And that's basically it. If you find this video useful, please help us by hitting the like button and subscribe to us if you haven't already done so. Hit the meeple in the corner as well if you like. Hit the bell so you get notification when we have new videos like this one, how to play playthrough, and so on. I'm also on Instagram. Hopefully you can find me there as well. And thanks for watching. See you next time.